आप सभी का बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन, आभार। हम आप सभी का 1757 माइलस्टोन ऑफ आयुष समृद्धि इंटरनेशनल वेबिनार सीरीज में स्वागत करते हैं। आज फॉरेस्ट मटेरियल्स डे है, जो हम पालन कर रहे हैं, लेकिन फॉरेस्ट को कंजर्व करना हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनती है। और हम नेक्स्ट जेन के लिए क्या छोड़ जाएं, इसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात है कि कम से कम हरियाली तो छोड़ जाए। इन्हीं सब प्रारंभिक शब्दों के साथ आई वुड लाइक टू इनवाइट डॉक्टर विष्णु प्रसाद शर्मा सर फॉर हिज वेलकम स्पीच एंड प्रोसेस फॉर कंजर्वेशन इम्पोर्टेंस।
Thank you. Namaskar. Good evening to everybody. Respected distinguished guests, eminent speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I, Professor Dr. Vishnu Prasad Sharma, welcome all of you to AYUSH SAMRIDDHI International Webinar Series on Forest Conserve for Next Generation. Most important subject, most necessary subject. So in this webinar, we have eminent speaker. I want to welcome Dr. Suparna S. Mukherjee from Bolpur. Namaskar, madam, and welcome you to this AYUSH Samriddhi webinar. Next, I want to welcome Dr. Soikat Kumar Basu from Alberta, Canada. Namaskar, sir, and welcome you to this AYUSH Samriddhi webinar. Once again, I welcome all the eminent speaker, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to this AYUSH Samriddhi International Webinar Series on Forest Conserve for Next Generation. Once again, I welcome all of you. Thank you. Namaskar. Over to Pawanji.
Thank you very much, sir. So nice of you. You are our pillar of the journey. So I would like to request Professor V.K. Agnihotri sir for his valuable comments.
Thank you, Professor Pawan Sharma ji. I welcome all the guest speakers of today this evening, especially Dr. Jagat Kumar Basu ji, Dr. Parna Ji, along with Professor Shimsha Sharma ji, Professor Pawan Sharma ji, and Professor Nishan Shukla ji, Amrish Sahab. Actually, it's really a very high time to talk about this topic pertaining to forest conserve for next generation. I think the hottest topic nowadays is running in India, especially in Uttar Pradesh. For last 2 months, and especially during this period, 56 out of 56 days, more than 10 lives have been finished, not only attacked, finished, I should say, by this especially wolf and jackal and other such forest animals, which are now restless because of their homes or because of their dense forest. They are running towards urban area, towards roadside, towards quenching their thirst. Reluctantly, persons working in the fields or even the nearby residents living in the small huts, countryside area, whether the doors are there or not so means strong. These animals are entering in their house, especially on the sleeping time, night hours, and small kids, say 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, kids are attacked, either they are getting injured or they carry with them, and the life is been now finished by at least during last 56 days more than 10%. So, and more than 100 persons got injuries. They are getting health and recovery in the hospital. So the reason behind it that we are not conserving the forest and also reaching towards the dependent forest areas, constructing the roads and making the this safari tourism, means promoting the safari tourism, persons going with 12, 13, 15 number safari jeeps and reaching to the nearest part, walking and seeing the far impression of such animals. So it is havoc, and sometimes tusk elephants are also seen. We have also gone with the families and all that. So we have to think twice on this issue, and guest speakers are with us. They are well versed with all these crisis situations and also knowing the habitat and the likings, disliking, desires, and need of animals, those who are living in the dense forest, and also the habitat is the only jungle for their animals. So with these words, I am confident enough to feel that our guest speakers are going to provide a very good speech and very good information on this issue. Thank you so much. And over to Professor Shamaji for inviting our today's guest. Thank you.
I would like to request Professor Dr. Sakat Kumar Basu ji. Welcome, Dr. Sakat. Welcome.
Thank you, Sharmaji.
I hope you are also joining.
Madam just messaged me that she was having a little internet disruption, so she asked me to go ahead, and meanwhile she will join. If she has not already joined, she was having some internet issues.
Welcome.
Okay. So I can start now. Sharmaji, I should start now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I am extremely grateful to the AYUSH SAMRIDDHI platform for giving me this opportunity once again to talk about forestry and particularly on forest conservation. So I'll give a brief outline of why. I mean, there is no need to emphasize on why forests are important, as Agnihotri ji has very nicely illustrated that it is the part of our economy, parts of our ecosystem. Without forest, we could not survive, and the level to which our society or the local biodiversity has evolved, we would not have been able to evolve to this extent if we do not have forest. Other than anything else, the most important part of the role of the plant is supplying the plant. And for this part, give me 2 minutes. Madam is just calling. I think she's having some problem.
Your voice is not coming dear. Agnihotri sir.
बोलते नेट इशू है कुछ बोलते ट्राई करेंगे.
Hello.
आ गया
Am I audible now? Yeah. I think we were having a little disruption. So forest is important. We do not need to reiterate or illustrate why forests are important, both from religious points, psycho-sociological points, economy and ecology. Very, very important part. I'm going to highlight more. Madam definitely is going to join, but she's going to highlight on the the role of the forest and the life of the tribes and stuff, because that's a specialty. I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to highlight on like why we are so worried about the forest. Why is it that we are observing International Forest Day and we are highlighting upon the forest conservation? Is no doubt along the around the world we are losing forest. I am not very sure, I do not believe China at all, but statistically reports after reports have indicated that Chinese forest areas are increasing. I am not very sure whether this is very true or this is fake statement, as there is so much of industrialization and agricultural growth in China that no forest has been impacted, and they are having so much forest. The rate of pollution in China is also very high, like India. But strangely, like while other countries are reporting loss of forest, China is reporting a huge increase in their forested areas. So either they are really doing a good job in increasing their forested areas, else I have doubts in their statistics and stuff in which they're claiming there has been so much increase in forested areas. They're saying that they have done a lot of social forestry or artificial forest generation in protecting the country. Nonetheless, by looking around the world, this is a global challenge or a problem around the world is that our forest areas are depleting. Why are our forest areas are depleting? The forest areas are depleting since the time of our industrial revolution. As our agriculture and various industries, like whether it's a mechanical industries, chemical industries, or any other industries that expanded, automobile industry, as we got advanced in our science and technology, particularly in our engineering technologies, our industries have been expanding, and our agriculture is also becoming very, very much industrialized as more and more lands are being put into agriculture. Our agriculture is becoming extensive, where we are having a number of crops from the same crop zone around the year. And this is necessary in the sense that our human populations, we have been able to conquer diseases. We have been able to discover many drugs, pharmaceuticals, whether it's Ayurveda or conventional or non-conventional modern medicine. The life expectancy of people have increased what was maybe 100 years back. So as our population is significantly increased, we need more housing, we need more industry and agriculture for employment of people, for the purpose of food security and other related issues. And so where are these new lands coming? Where are we getting these huge lands which we need for agriculture, industry, infrastructural development? Definitely, these lands are allocated from existing forests. So what is this process? The process is that we clear up a section of the forest and use it for, building infrastructure, railway lines, superhighways, highways, airports and stuff, building schools and various other institutes and organizations that we need to support our civilization and humanistic needs and growths, as well as expansion of agricultural industry. We get frequent reports of elephants or other wildlife moving out from the forest and coming into the locality. First, they're moving into the rural adjoining areas, and then they're moving into even modern towns and cities, as has been reported in many parts, particularly from southern Indian areas. But why is this happening? This is happening because of the fact as the forest is reducing, the animals which are surviving, like an elephant needs a lot of space, a lot of food resources and stuff. So as the forest is depleting and we are taking away the forest lands, utilizing it for industrial and agricultural growth, as well as for our infrastructural purposes, and the human population is increasing, the habitats of the wildlife, the habitats in which they have survived for millions of years, are shrinking. Their food resources are being depleted, and as a consequences, wildlife is coming out of the forest and moving into first the adjacent perimeter forest areas, then into the rural areas, and sometimes even into the cities, towns, municipalities, and corporations. So this is a very unfortunate situation where we are losing out in huge amounts, significant parts of the forest. So this is the industrial need, growth of human population, that is impacting the depletion of forest. What other factors are there in the degradation and depletion of the forest? It is this I have mentioned this in many few in the past my lectures about the medicinal plants, various fungi, various forest minor products, and timber. There is a government way or the forest department way of processing trees, where they plant trees, they grow them to a particular season, or they use a particular part of the forest in cutting down the trees, keep it fallow, and regenerate the plants and stuff. This is one way of scientific forest management for industrial growth, financial growth, employment and stuff, where you are utilizing forest resources for the purpose of economy generation as well as maintaining the forest. But this is not always happening under the auspices of the forest department. If you would have I do not know whether you had the opportunity to see the South Indian movie Pushpa, where red sandalwood smuggling has been the central theme and focus of the movie. Although this is a movie, many of the facts are exaggerated and stuff, but the basic element of the story is the same, that forest resources across India are being plundered. By plundered by whom? By the poorest of the poor, because they have no other opportunity to survive. They have no income generation. They do not have, growth of economic growth in the rural areas where they could survive. So what they would do, they are dependent on the scanty forest resources that are available in and around them. So they are going into the forest, cutting down the trees for the purpose of, fuel, fodder, fiber, fertilizer, and forage for supplying their the livestock. If you go in India, particularly, or in developing countries, we do not have organized pastures or organized farms where our cows or other livestock like goat, sheep, etc., can roam around and feed upon grasses. As we have in Western countries, here what happens is people let their animals loose. They will move in and around the vicinity of the forest. They will eat and survive based on these vegetation, and they come back at the end of the whole day home. The farmer really does not have to invest a significant amount of money for feeding these animals, and this is how our dairy industry in an unorganized sectors have survived for a very long time. Same for goatry production, same for sheep production, same for yaks, mithuns, and all other domestic animals that we see in and around us has survived like this for many years. This has adjusted with the ecosystem, but with the increase of the population, with more and more domestic animals or livestock being raised by the people, and because they do not have resources to feed these animals, they are let loose in and around the forested areas. So these have a few dangers that are causing degradation of the forest, in the sense that these animals are moving in, grazing there, uprooting grasses, competing with the wildlife or the wild herbivores who are dependent on these plant-based food resources for their survival. So they are taking out this, or even villagers or fringe dwellers are moving into the forest. They are cutting out grasses, branches, healthy fruits and berries and stuff. Whatever is available for the wildlife is being taken by the people and their livestock. So there is a degradation of food resources for the herbivore animals. And if there is degradation of food resources for the herbivore animals, they will stop reproducing faster. Their numbers will dwindle. They will scatter out to a wider forest areas. And the predatory animals like tigers, lions, etc., who are dependent on these herbivores for their survival, now has scanty food resources. So they are also coming out of the forest. This has been a classical case of our snow leopard, which is an elusive Himalayan animal that reaches and lives at a very high elevation of the Himalayas and prey upon the goats and thars and other herbivores that survive on high altitude. But because of climate change, grass grown in the lower ridges of the mountain are not growing very successfully. So what are these herbivore animals doing? These deers, wild sheep, antelopes, they are coming down to the slopes. They're coming to the pastures. They're coming to the base of the mountains and stuff, where they're looking for grasses, forages, and crops, which they find as an abundant source of food. And these predatory animals, the snow leopard, which used to live at a certain altitude, is tracking these and following their food sources and are coming down. And while they are coming down, there is conflicts with the human-animal conflict is getting better, because they are not only capturing these wild herbivores, but they're also going into the stables and, killing dogs, chicken, poultry, cows and other things as a source of food, because they are not having abundant supply of their prey bases. So where should wild animal go? They will start looking for food sources, and they will come and venture into the adjoining villages for food resources. I do not know whether you are aware of, like in Uttar Pradesh, there has been a recent very scary incident of in certain villages, there has been a group of wolves, Indian wolves, that have become, they're saying that they have become predatory and man-eater, and they're moving in a particular perimeter of, say, a few hundred kilometers, and they're venturing into the villages at night. They're getting into the houses and they're taking out babies, like sleeping babies, they're taken out. There has been lots of controversies. The government has, the forest department in UP has been working extensively. They have tracked that. They're saying that there is a group of 6 wolves, a team that has been responsible for predating on humans who have turned man-eater, which is quite rare for wolves to do. and they have been able to capture and trap 4 of them. And they also have engaged hunters, trap shooters, and stuff. They're looking for the last 2 members of this particular group so that they can take them out from the ecosystem and restrict them, or maybe put them in another zoo or something like that, because now they have become very dangerous. Now, whether this story, as has been always pointed out, is true or not, I have a little bit of doubt, because there have been reports about these wolves killing childs and stuff and things like that in many other parts, like down in the history. But if you look deep into the investigations of the people, there has been cases that these were falsification or false allegations about these wolves. Tigers get man-eaters, or other predatory animals sometimes get man-eaters. Other than tigers, there has been few reports of leopards becoming man-eater, but man-eating animals are getting extremely rare. These are extremely rare incidents. But this stealing of babies from the villages, either for tantric pujas and stuff and giving balis and things, or child trafficking could also be a part of this. And there may be a nexus with the police and administration of the forest department talking about wolves being the predatory, because there has been no picture or videos documented. There is nothing available in the public domain. There is this hue and cry about babies being stolen from these villages, but whether these are done by the predatory wolves that they are saying, or it is a work of a particular gang which is staging up this and stealing babies and things like that, I am not very sure. In the past, there has been similar stories in UP and other adjoining areas of Himachal Pradesh and stuff, where there has been what we would say is either narsanhar, or stealing babies and stuff for religious purposes, sacrificing them in the name of God and things like that by some uneducated people and communities, or there has been strong allegations of child trafficking. Nonetheless, these intervention of human too much inside the forest is damaging the habitat quality. Furthermore, more human interventions have caused and led to various wide rapid forest fires. Also, poor management of forest, not utilizing dry leaves and stuff that has accumulated over a long time due to climate change and lack of rainfall, and not utilizing them, removing them from the forest from time to time, or not doing managed controlled forest fire regime as is done in Western countries, to maintain the forest from getting too dry, so that if there is a lightning, they result in a devastating natural forest fire that spread across a huge distance and cause problem. During the colonial period, the Britishers bought a lot of plants from other countries. Our Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and all these areas had plants which are not very inflammable historically. But the British introduced a lot of this pine growth for the wood and resin and other commercial purposes. And now these trees have become gregarious and have occupied the mountains down there. They have become the dominant vegetation. And these leaves that collect at the bottom at the end of every season, if they're getting collected, they do not degrade or biodegrade very fast. So they serve as a fuel or an indhan. Whenever there is a forest fire, these leaves, dry leaves, branches, dry fruits and stuff, and the resin present in this plant, which is highly inflammable, helps in further scattering the forest and stuff. So these repeated incidents of forest fires in some parts of UP and some parts of other areas of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, that has been happening repeatedly, that has been damaging significant acreage of the forest, is indicated partially could be because of this over exploitation, over growth of pines and other species that has taken over the natural vegetation over the last 100 years. And unless this is now managed properly, which is expensive and needs a lot of monitoring, surveillance, and training, these forest fires continue to happen. And these forest fires, if they're continuing to happen in whichever part of India, they usually become devastating. And this is destroying not only the forest, but the wildlife and our biodiversity. The other is that throughout the world, there is so much about, political instability, poor economy, unstable political system. This is shaking up the communities. And also there is so much genocides that has happened in various countries in Africa, which has reached forests. What happened is, to avoid prosecution or to avoid being targeted by one community or one tribe who are killing the other tribes in a part of genocide, many people have moved into the forest. For example, when the Rwanda massacre happened, where millions of people were slaughtered, as a result of racial conflict between two groups of local community, Tutsis and Hutus. A huge number of people, to avoid getting killed, moved into neighboring Congo. The Congo is a country very rich in forest. It's almost like what we call the Amazon of Africa. And because of huge number of people infiltrating into the forest from the adjoining countries where they are having trouble into Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the forest ecosystem, etc., are getting widely destroyed because these are the original habitats of chimpanzees, bonobos, and various other rare endangered animals which are not found in other parts of Africa so abundantly as it in Congo. So the human intervention or persecution of human, or people fearing genocide, or people who are associated with Maoist activities, other terrorist activities, even in India, has been taking refuge in the forest. For example, we all know about the man from southern India who was associated with the sandalwood smuggling and killing of elephants for collection of elephant tusks, and has become one of the atrocious individual who killed many forest official, police and stuff. He used to have connection with the top level government. His money that he would collect by extortion and stuff has gone to various political parties, particularly in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So the government has benefited from from his illegal sources of money. I could not believe with India, a country with so many paramilitary military forces, BSF and other, or CISF, could not control a forest goon by the name of Virappan for such a long time, unless there was, some hidden hands behind him protecting him, that working in the same system. But he ravaged forests. Why people turn into Virappan, why Maoists are forming, that's a separate story. That's a very scary sociological, landscape of India, and how people are being exploited and how they are forced into terrorism is a different story. But to tell that because these people are infiltrating and accumulating in our forest in huge numbers, this is turning into a very serious and atrocious impact, depleting our forest, because many people are moving into the forest, either from hiding from law, or from to avoid persecution, or from genocides and stuff. So these huge infiltration of human beings within the forest, and then the army and security forces tracing and tracking them down and coming and developing their camps within these forests for security purposes, etc., is ravaging the forest. One very important aspect that I would like to highlight, that many of these security forces come with hunting dogs, local dogs and stuff, for tracking down these criminals, perpetrators and stuff. Many times when they have moved, many of these dogs they have left behind, and they have become stray dogs. And today, one of the biggest killers of wildlife, whether it's a deer, whether it's other kinds of herbivores, is these dogs which have been left out by security forces or by other fringe dealers or poachers and stuff who use this dog for tracking or for other purposes and left them after their work. These dogs have become semi-wild, and they are hunting wildlife, and they are also competing for food sources with the larger predatory animals such as leopards, tigers, lions, or our clouded leopards. So these challenges, and they are killing if any juvenile animal fall into their trap, or if any accidentally a deer or an antelope strays out of the forest and gets into the village, they are harassed, tackled, and brutally attacked by this dog, which will kill them if not take their meat and stuff. It's a nuisance. So the feral dogs that are associated and living in and around fringe areas of the forest have been one of the very important cause, which has led to almost semi-extinction of a large number of herbivore animals, as well as major animals like red panda. Red panda babies and stuff has been killed many times because of these dogs are straying into the forest, and they're becoming a significant, because they hunt in a pack. So they have this wolf-like instinct, and they are becoming a very powerful predator in the forest system and killing wildlife. And this is damaging and destroying our forest, because for example, in northeast of India, there is humongous bamboo forest at one point of time, and there are several other animal species which are dependent on this bamboo forest, like the red panda. But as we are losing this extensive bamboo forest, whether it's in Assam, whether it's in Mizoram, whether it's in Nagaland, Manipur, which are highly, heavily forested states, many of the wildlife in those areas are being impacted. Bamboos are not only a part of the forest, they're also a deep part of the socio-cultural and socio-economic life of the people, even in the northeastern states of India. The depletion of the bamboo forest has been having significant impact on the ecosystem, as well on the life and socio-cultural life of the people and the tribes that live in and around there. So, like, railways that traverse through forested areas are repeatedly known to hit elephants, gaurs, bisons, rhinoceros, and all other wildlife which cross these railway paths because they do not understand when to stop or stand. And many times these animals are being killed mercilessly. There are numerous YouTube videos of elephants being hit and how these huge animals are dying out of slow death of extreme pain and agony. It's so very difficult to watch. But very few times the Indian Railways have punished the drivers who have failed to travel within prescribed press limit within sensitive forest ecosystem and zone. So there is a serious lack of education and awareness and lack of sensitivity and empathy among the people in understanding how important forest and wildlife are, and they are damaging and destroying it over tourism. Like, forests have now become a very important destination of many city dwellers who want to take refuge in the forest for a few days and stuff. But the overwhelming number of tourists coming and visiting the forest, the number of tourist tours, either on elephant back or particularly on motorized vehicle within the forest, particularly during the festive seasons such as Christmas, New Year, Dasera, and other parts, other festive seasons of the year, when hundreds and thousands of tourists are flocking into these forested areas for recreation. And although there is a rich revenue being run, but it is also disturbing, destroying the forest ecosystem, uprooting the soil, making the topsoil loose. The grazing of domestic animals is also making the topsoil loose. They're removing the vegetation, reducing competition, increasing competition for other wild herbivores that are surviving there. And with the topsoil loss, the quality of forest degradation increases. The process of slash and burn, like, burn your forest, grow and produce crop for 2-3 years, and then move into another part of the forest, burn that forest and grow your crops. This used to be an old ancient system in Northeast India and other parts of India. When your population was low, such destructive agricultural process was not such significant impacting factor for forest conservation. But now with increasing population, if too many people are moving into the forest and they are doing a slash and burn method where they are burning and clearing the forest and doing agriculture for 2-3 years, forest soils are not very productive because most of the elements, our nutrients, are usually available on the very top few inches of the soil. So to use these non-agronomically suitable areas for agronomy, and only you can use it for 2-3 years, and then it becomes so poor yielding that the farmer has to move to a new corner of the forest by destroying it. It's a very, very ravaging, damaging practice, but it is still practiced in vast parts of Northeast India and other areas where the government has very little restriction, regulation, monitoring, and surveillance. There are several laws for the protection of the forest, but the protection of the forest is not happening very significantly in a developing country, particularly with countries like India, who has such a huge, substantial population, and a significant amount of them living in rural areas are dependent on these scanty forest resources for collecting minor forest products, forest fungi, medicinal plants, etc. So little bit of money that they could earn from these resources, they are dependent on it. But the forests are not getting the time to regenerate. So many human and natural factors are impacting the forest depletion so significantly that we are losing out forested areas. Natural forest growth in India has not been significant, but individual attempts of certain people have shown that if we take care, there has been stories from Assam where an individual started planting trees and has been continuing to have transformed few hundred hectares into a very dense forest that has attracted very quality wildlife and things. So this is possible. But at the same time, the regeneration process of the forest is not very good. There has been attempts in some cities to create artificial forests, to plant more and more trees to deal with the challenges of climate change and stuff. But I think we need to plant more trees. But more than planting trees, it is important to plant the tree and make sure it reaches maturity, so that it grows up, produces fruits and flowers, and is capable of regenerating on its own so that it can multiply. And this is in the process can cover the soil and give them the protection. The more forests are lost, the soil is exposed, and the temperature of the soil increases, the moisture in the soil goes out, and they become susceptible to wind erosion. So this is not a very good part. More trees removed results in landscapes and other destructive natural processes that degrades our land. In many parts of the Himalayas, as you know, the construction has been so overgrown that it has been a very challenging process to reduce, and this is impacting the environment. The forest is getting degraded. So I would conclude my presentation here by saying that there are so many important factors that are impacting the degradation of the forest in India and other developing and underdeveloped countries that it is alarming, because these are the countries which are close to the tropics, that are rich in biodiversity, rich in forestry, but with wrong or a non-scientific management of the process, lack of surveillance and monitoring, and good strategies and policy with comprehensive forest department, failing to integrate local people into the forest conservation purpose, making them a stakeholders in the process, has been the few factors that are alarming, that we are reducing or losing forest significantly. So we need to protect forest, but we also need to know what are the impact factors which are impacting the forest. Thank you once again, and it has been a pleasure making this presentation. Thank you so much.
Excellent as always, Dr. Saikat Basuji. Excellent.
Thank you.
Now I would like to request Dr. Suparna Sanyal Mukherjee, madam. Suparna madam, welcome. Welcome, madam.
Namaste.
Welcome.
Very good evening to the all dignitaries over here. It is my great opportunity to getting the scope to say something on this forest for the next generation. It's a very burning topic and very interesting topic. And the forest, my earlier speaker has told regarding the forest, not the forest, forestry and forest management, but I would like to emphasize on this forest itself. From the generation wise, from the starting of the erosive forest is the main aspects of the life sustenance, because the first single cell animal to multicellular animal all has been incorporated, and they are developing in their life cycle in the forest. Forest is an enormous potentiality. He has the enormous natural resources, and people, those are living, they started living in the forest, and their territory is depending upon the forest. Their socio-economic, socio-cultural, socio-religious, techno-economic life is also dependent on the forest. The 1760, when the British took charge of India as the East India Company, from that time, the then government, British government, was alluring in the forest, and they found it out the various natural resources which is very rich in the power, in the formation. So they have identified the Indian forest and Indian flora and fauna for the business purposes. And they wanted to create the supremacy over the forest, Indian forest especially. They sent the Brandeis, who has appointed as the conservator of forest at 1864. And then they create an act in 1865, the name and style of Indian Forest Act 1865. The 1865 was the first forest act which was implemented in the Indian forest, because at that time India was the unmitigated country and there is no boundaries. There are plenty of areas which were covered the forest, but the forest covered areas are rich sources of revenue, and British has been identified that these natural resources are very important for their business purposes and for the benefit thereof. And they extracted from the forest. And at that time, the tribals, those who are living, those who are surviving in the forest, they have the permanent residence. They are exploring the forest for their natural benefit. But the then government found it out that the tribals are their counterpart, the tribal counterpart. That's why they implemented the act, and they ousted the forest, the tribal people from the forest, just because they don't have the entity in the forest. But the 1865 act was many lacunae. Those lacunae is not been identified. Those lacunae is under the code of law, and this law and this act was again superseded in 1878 as the name and style of Indian Forest Act 1878. The first comprehensive forest law in India was incorporated by the then government. This law also first identified the reserve forest, protected forest, and village forest. These categories forest was first identified, and this reserve forest, there is no ingress and egress was allowed. The protected forest, those the aborigines, so those who are living and surviving in the forest, they have to be settled in the protected forest, and village forest are just because of they can practice the agriculture and other products. When this act was continuing, and several times it has been also amended, but lastly, it was in 1927, the Indian Forest Act was enacted finally, 16th September, the Indian Forest Act 1927, which is still in vogue. The Indian Forest Act 1927 is a monarchical act. This monarchical act, because the British Raj Tantra was giving the identification of this act. The Indian Forest Act 1927 aimed to regulate to movement of forest produce and duty leviable forest producers. It also explained the procedure to be followed for declaring an area as reserve forest, protected forest, which has been identified in the 1878 Forest Act and also the village forest. And this act has details of what a forest offence is and what are the acts prohibited inside a reserve forest and penalties leviable on violation of the provision of the act. After the Forest Act was enacted in 1865, it was amended twice, and this is the final and which is practiced and still in vogue.
मैम आप म्यूट हैं, आप म्यूट हो गए, आपका माइक म्यूट हो गया.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So then the Indian Forest Act is maintaining the rules and regulations. Afterwards, there is a Forest Conservation Act. Then the tribal people, those who are living in the forest area, they are ousted from their residence, the permanent residence. But they are basically those tribal people. If we can divide the total entire tribal people of the India, we can the socio-economic parameters we can divide it in three categories. One is the craftsman tribe, another one is the settled agriculturist, and another one is the hunter-gatherer. These tribal communities are divided, and their rights, rituals, norms, customs are practiced in the forest. So forest was their mother. They treated the forest as their mother. So in that case, when the act has been implemented, but when the monarchical act is still continuing, previously the Rajas, Jamindars, they have introduced the forest for their pleasure. At the same time, the British also enacted this act, and they are utilizing this act for their enormous potentiality to utilization for their business purposes, because they have identified the Indian national flora and fauna is a rich source of the high potentiality in the business purpose, and they they have taken the woods from the Bengal Nagpur section, and they have built up a university, and they have built all the furnitures, their residence purposes, the utensils, everything they have made by this Indian wood and wood factor. When the act was continuing, so in that cases, it has been observed that when the independence has happened and we are reaching independence, still the Indian Forest Act is continuing. And this act is giving the 1894, there was though the act has prohibited and restricted the ingress and egress from the forest for the aboriginal, for the forest dwellers. And but where they will go, it is the sudden prohibition they have faced. And suddenly they have been ousted from the forest and where they are surviving. But that's why they are become the shocked, they become the threatened, the government has pushed them for the jeopardy. But when it has been happening at that time, the 1894 policies, at the time of the government, they have given some relaxation for the forest dwellers. Relaxations like they can collect a few forest producers, non-timber minor forest producers, and they can utilize this for their the regular uses. But this using and this natural resources are very meager in using, because they couldn't get it, and when they entered into the forest officials gave them punishment, and they are taking penalties, and these penalties poor people cannot giving it. That's why they the imprisonment. So there are three categories of law has been also implemented, like COR, POR, and UDOR. UDOR is very relaxable if the forest official feel that the punishment is not required, so they can take the few charges and they can leave the people. Then COR also is compounding offences when it has to be penalty, and penalty they have introduced in the incumbent consent, and POR is a prosecution. So what is happening? The 30 rupees, if they can give the charges and the penalty is the 30 rupees, and the person is not giving, is not going to have the power to explain the 30 rupees and give the 30 rupees. But this 30 rupees, when they are not giving, so this 30 rupees is getting the increment, and it's come to the 1,000 rupees, then 3,000 to 30,000. 30,000 when they are not giving the penalties, they have to send to the POR imprisonment. Then imprisonment, after imprisonment, there's no prosecution has happened. The official, the lawyer from the government side is representing, but the defense of lawyers is not there, because the poor people cannot give the lawyers fees, then no one can fight for them, because the penalties was only 30 rupees, and the activities, the law offenders, knowingly unknowingly, because they don't know what is the law, what law has been implemented in the forest, because these people are the free, they enjoying the forest resources for their benefit, because they are restoring, they restore the forest producers, and they are taking the forest materials for their daily livelihood sustenance, and they are maintaining their socio-economic, socio-cultural. Not only that, there are all the rights, rituals, and socio-religious aspect is also forest-based. So forest is there, the mother, and they worship all the trees to protect the environment and to protect the forest as such. Afterwards, what has happened, 1988 forest policy, 1988 forest policy also giving such concessions of the people. So they allowed the one headload for the home consumption. One person, one headload per day they can take, the non-timber minor forest producers. But one headload is very, how much, what is the quantity, it has not yet been mentioned in the policies or the act. Act is also also totally prohibited, but policy giving such a concession of which they can take the one head load. This head load, there is no quantification. So with this head load, if they can take a day one head load and for the home consumption, but home consumption, for this home consumption, what they will do, they sell it out for the 20 rupees. One head load, how much they can take? They can take 20 kgs, 30 kgs, 50 kgs, 70 kgs. The 70 years of old people taking one head load because they will sell it out in the market and they will get the 20 rupees, of which they can buy the any kinds of food materials for the daily livelihood sustenance. This is the situation and condition. Still, it is going on. The one head load they are carrying. Afterwards, the 2018 policy, this 2018 policies is giving the PPP model, this public-private prosecution. So this PPP model is they are giving the encouraging the middlemen, those who are in between the local people and the forest officials. So what has happened, this mahalis, those who are getting the raw material from the forest for their craftsmanship, so they are not getting, because they cannot buy the raw material like the bamboo. So when they're getting the free, they are practicing their handicrafts and they are selling it out in the market, and then they can maintain their sustainability and the livelihood sustenance. At the same way, the Lodha is becoming the bewildered lord, because they had ousted, because they are the hunter-gatherer. Hunting is totally eclipsed and the gathering is continuing. The 1,000 sal leaves they can collect in a day, the thousands leaves they are getting 20 rupees. The 1,000 leaves is the no way, it is the not the sustainable amount they are getting. So these are the conditions, though they don't have any land, that's why they cannot practice agriculture, but at the same time they can use the partial agriculture with the santan. So this is the situation how the Indian Forest Act policies, because this act and policies is always going to the parallel line, they never ever meet in the point. So that's why the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Development Act is also coming in, which was implemented in 2005. They have the 100 days guaranteed program, and the 100 days guaranteed program they incorporated with the Forest Department, and Forest Department giving the privileges of the local village peoples, the local people. So this 100 days, when they are getting 100 days, and this what about the 265 days? So there is a very, very lacunae in between the act, forest people, and the implementation of this act. At the same way, it is very interesting and very, the Joint Forest Management, then the Forest Protection Committee, all has been utilized and maintained and started for the development of the local people with the Forest Department, but it is not yet been fulfilled properly. So that's why the people are in the, how many ponds they will create, how many ponds they will make. So it is not the single day process. So it is, that's why their economy is totally, socio-economic conditions totally jeopardy. The culturally they are ousted, culturally they are not yet been maintaining their society. That's why the forest for the new generation is very questionable. If the act is not maintaining the democratic wise, or when we are living in a democratic society, if the act is not maintaining the democracy, then what is how the democratic world is maintaining a monarchical act, and which is still in vogue. So that is the main situation. If we would not taking care of the forest, next, then the forest management, we have the several departments, we have the scientific orientation, we have the agricultural production, we have the agricultural maintenance, so many things are there, but the basic point, the basic census is absolutely in dwindle situation, till it is not yet been in the perfect situation. So it is the situation the next generation should take care of the forest, because forest is our natural phenomenon. Forest has the natural resources and the enormous potentiality to protect us. The forest is only, if there is no forest, we cannot go anywhere, because if we denude forest, and what is happening day by day, and our civilization is going forward, marching forward, so we are destroying our natural resources. So we need to take care of this forest, because forest is very important for us. And thank you, because IUCN also originated from this forest only, because all the medicinal plants biodiversity is restoring in the forest. So restoration is required. Thank you very much. Thanks to the all, and thanks to the AYUSH Samriddhi for giving me such an opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, madam. Well in time, and content is powerful. Excellent, Suparna madam. Agnihotri sir, kindly conclude.
Well, both the guest speakers of today's evening commented very well on the subject foresters conserve for the next generation. Very naturally, apart from the conservation of jungles and forests, it's very, very important that these are the source of oxygen, and without this, neither the oxygen be available, nor the environmental uh, setup will be balanced. So, eco-balance, for the eco-balance purpose, and also for the purest form of the air, the plants and the forests are very important. We are always experiencing every year this smog problem in Kurukshetra, yes, this Haryana, Delhi area, NCR area, and the air index lowest down very, very, very. In that way, it is very, very important that the greenery must be protected. Forests must be protected. Jungle, especially those who are releasing good oxygen, like people, neem, etc., be there, and that is the really habitat of our jungle animals, our forest animals. So it's the eco balance. Otherwise, the human will be at risk if the jungles will be destroyed, or the trees will be cut indiscriminately. With these words, I think that they have presented very well, and for the good informative session. I think we have taken much time of today's webinar. We reached an end of our subject. We thank again and again our guest speakers, and we think that this is the high time for the Pawan Sharmaji will like to call off, close this webinar on today.